Hello everyone, this is Scott Restivo with Crow Canyon Software, and welcome to our webinar on digital transformation with Crow Canyon. We will get started in a minute or two. There's still some people arriving, so hold on and we'll be right there and get going. Thank you. Okay, I think enough people have signed up now that we can get going, and anyone who's late can join us in the middle here. Well, again, thank you for attending this webinar. We timed it for our European audience because we have a number of European customers and the market over there is growing. We were just at the European SharePoint conference in Dublin, Ireland, and met many people who showed interest in our programs, and we also have many customers there already, and it's we wanted to time this webinar to be for your time, assuming you're in Europe, which is more in the afternoon. We are based in the United States, so for us it's still morning. Okay, so Crow Canyon, the contention that we have here, the place we come from, is that Office 365 and SharePoint are powerful tools to enact digital transformation at your organization. Well, what this means is taking old legacy programs, things that aren't working very well or inefficiently, and moving them to Office 365 in a cloud mobile environment. So we'll go into that in this webinar. I'll keep it hopefully to 30 or 40 minutes. There's time for questions. Questions in this kind of webinar, you would just enter them into the question box and we'll answer them as we can. And also any questions you might have that come up after, you can contact us. I'll show some addresses. Of course, it's just simply sales@crowcanyon.com is an obvious one, but I'll show up other ways of contacting us and staying in touch. So let's jump right into it and get going on what can be done with Office 365 and SharePoint. Well, the first thing I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is put up a poll that says what version of SharePoint you're on so that I can get a sense of where I should go with this. So I'm just going to put that up for a moment. And then if people have a chance to answer it, it just only takes 10 seconds, usually 10, 15 seconds, and then we'll be able to know where people are at and where we go with this. Okay, I think we're good on that. People seem to answer that very quickly. So we have some people on SharePoint Online, some on 2016. Seems like we are, people are spread across that. Some people maybe are doing hybrid with SharePoint Online and Office 365, but our programs work in both. So if you're on-premises or you're in SharePoint Online, our applications work on both ways. We've developed an application layer that will accelerate SharePoint, whether it's online or on-premises, into new levels of capability. So let me show you some of the applications that we have come up with so we can give you kind of a taste of what's going on here. So we've taken Office 365 or SharePoint. This could be just as well SharePoint on-premises, SharePoint 2013, 2016, even hybrid environments, and show you some of the stuff that can be done. Here is an IT help desk. We have this tiles and dials. I mean, obviously we've taken SharePoint quite a ways from out of the box. So I'll just run through a few. This is an IT help desk with tickets, problems, change requests. It could be simply a ticketing system. I mean, it's a very adjustable, very configurable program. We also have an asset management program that can tie into the IT help desk. This can list your assets and see them. We have a facilities management or work order type program. It can involve equipment. We have purchase requests. You can see there's different interfaces to this. This is part of the flexibility of how the program is presented, whether it's this kind of branding or that kind of branding. These are all ways that the information from SharePoint can be shown with the proper programming and apps and web parts underlying it. Here's an onboarding system where you can see different tasks associated with each onboarding event, contract management, and customer service. So it goes on and on. There's quite a number of applications that we can devise or put into action in your organization. Now, in the actual organizations that we've encountered and talked with and people we spend time with discussing their situation, we find that there's a lot of business challenges with legacy applications. And this is where digital transformation really takes place. The thing is, there are a number of challenges that any organization, time moves on, things change, the technology changes, but also there's internal, we could say there's internal and external forces on an organization. So it could be a corporate directive to expand or move to the cloud. It could be the need, we hear the buzzword about digital workplace or digital transformation, and people get interested in that. How can we move to a more efficient way of operation? Could be that user adoption is real low on some of the old applications, or people just aren't using it. It's an old clunky interface that worked 10 years ago. Companies growing, or it could be merging, splitting, and there's a lot of regulatory and compliance requirements. I'm sure there's other challenges. These are the ones that rise to the surface and we encounter most often, and then people have to solve that in some manner. So what we find is that there are a number of people are on old programs such as emails and spreadsheets. Each of these, I'll go through these old styles of doing things and why a digital transformation is needed, and maybe this will resonate with some of you and the problems and issues you're encountering, and why you're looking to SharePoint and Office 365 as a way to improve in your organization, make it more efficient and productive. So email and spreadsheets, I could also include paper forms in there. That's very common. Emails is very often used, email with Outlook, whatever, is very commonly used to provide some kind of ticketing or request management system, and it always seems to get limited as far as the collaboration, what's being tracked, who's accountable, who's it assigned to, what happened, the historical record of those requests. It all gets buried in the inbox. And the same with spreadsheets, they tend to be only used by one person, or it's just shared, and it's not like a collaborative global kind of approach to the problem. Another one is there might be some ad hoc or homegrown programs developed by a developer. Years ago, the developer took off. He's no longer there, he or she's no longer there to support it, and there's issues with upgrades and support as programs change. There's legacy systems that are outdated or discontinued support. There's enterprise software that can be expensive and overkill. So these are some of the common things we hear when we talk to customers about why their organization can use a digital transformation and be brought up to a more productive and efficient way using SharePoint and Office 365. This is a slide I found up at the Microsoft headquarters when I went up there for a SharePoint show. And this is the Microsoft mantra, more or less, is to have this cycle where you're engaging your customers or your employees. It could be engaging customers, employees, empowering them. You're transforming your products, you're optimizing your operations, empowering your employees. So there's this cycle of a more beneficial, a virtuous cycle of improvement that will engage and empower your customers, your employees. It'll make your processes more efficient, streamline things, and we'll go into that more as we go along as how SharePoint and Office 365 can do that. But let's first take a look. What does SharePoint have out of the box? Is it enough? Well, SharePoint out of the box has a number of components that are quite useful. I mean, it's a good basis to start. One thing that we conclude here is your whole authentication mechanism, the Active Directory, the security. A lot of stuff underlies SharePoint and Office 365, and you do get lists and libraries and the columns, integration with AD, site collection, but it's not really enough to build the full application from our experience. You can put up a list, you can put up a document library, you can manipulate it around a little, but you're missing a number of factors. It needs a lot more that we found. Forms, how do you do a form that looks really nice? Workflows that move the application along, the request from beginning to end. There might be custom columns, drop lists, and cascading lists, and linked items, email synchronization, or database integration, reporting. These things are missing in the out-of-the-box SharePoint, and then we bring that in with our applications, have that in them, which makes them more powerful than you get out of the box of SharePoint here. So what Crow Canyon's approach has been to look at the applications as, what are we trying to accomplish here? What are the goals of the application? Obviously, it's productivity driving efficiency, streamlining operations, but we've broken it down into these 3 pillars of application design. Let me go into that a little bit, and then we'll go back into what we've done, what Crow Canyon's actually done in its applications, and how we've empowered and enhanced and amplified SharePoint and Office 365 in ways. So let's go into this. The 3 pillars here, we have our UI UX, user interface, user experience, the workflow and business processes, and reporting. The idea, the basic concepts here is that UI and UX, how you present the information to the user, whether it's forms, portals, email synchronization type tools, portals, forms, all that, that's going to empower, engage, and drive user adoption. Workflows and business processes are ways to automate and streamline operations, and reporting gives you feedback, so you have this continuous cycle of improvement, and you can see what is being done, who's working on it, where things are stuck. So these 3 things come together and produce really powerful and useful applications. Now, how is that done in SharePoint? Well, let's look at this, each one in a little more detail. And this is the Crow Canyon design, how we look at our applications. So we'll start with UI UX. I talked about how there's low user adoption rates. A lot of surveys show that there are problems with SharePoint in terms of user adoption. So to get around that, there's a number of ways. Well, of course, UI UX is important because we want people to use the application. That's obvious, our customers or employees. We want to aim for ease of use, simplicity. The information's right there that they need. It brings in information from different sources. It's got to be some kind of attractive visual elements, because people are used to seeing websites that are really well designed. They're used to using their apps on the phone or Facebook or whatever other sites, commercial, Amazon or something, that they're able to see interfaces that are more engaging and where these people have done a lot of research on UI UX, until they're going to expect that in a SharePoint or Office 365 application. Now, we work with that. How do you power up user adoption? There's forms and forms manager, dynamic forms that respond to user input. You put in custom columns, portals. These are all things we have in our applications, and we've done to empower and enhance SharePoint above its basic out-of-the-box capabilities. Configurable workspaces, dashboards, branding, responsive design, which means that it shows up well on mobile devices. Good forms, as an important consideration. We have interactive forms. They're dynamic, where they show and hide fields. You got form validation. Now, with paper forms, this is obviously a huge improvement over that, where you can validate and have required fields and make sure things are input is what it's supposed to be. Also dynamic. I mean, it's very hard to have dynamic forms with paper, I guess. And email isn't even a form to begin with. So, I mean, it's a very basic form, you could say. So having forms is very important. Pull information from other sources, initiate workflows. Here's an example of a form. This is a simple one. It has tabs here. It has a ribbon up here. This isn't in an edit mode where people would enter information, but if it was, they'd be able to have drop lists and check boxes and everything. And there's a lot of things going on underlying the form to make this really dynamic and interactive for the person who's filling it out. You have custom columns that give more functionality to the basic SharePoint, cascaded lookups, discussion columns, associated items, color choice. Now, if you're interested in any of these things, we'll go into a more personal one-on-one demo and show you things in real time. This webinar is meant to show you what's here, but it's hard to go into every detail, and in a one-on-one demo, we can answer your specific questions and deal with your specific needs and as they come up. But so this is kind of an overview of what's here and what's possible. So again, these custom columns add a lot more than you get out of the box SharePoint. There's portals that you can have that give a different kind of interface. Now you're getting a little bit away from the standard SharePoint look here, but you're given more of a portal kind of, we call these application portals as opposed to intranets. Intranets are more like news, employee of the month, what events are happening. This is a portal that's focused on the application's functionality. We're going to submit a ticket, we're going to view my tickets, we're going to look at FAQs, we're going to have some quick tickets here. This is making a presentable interface much more engaging than the standard SharePoint out of the box. This is highly configurable, and there's a lot can be done, and we can go into a lot of depth with this if we want to talk more about portals in your needs for them in a one-on-one demonstration. We have a number of ways of configuring these portals to really be adapted to your environment, your logo, your colors, that kind of thing. Here's another example of one kind of put together, forms catalog that can be done. So this is like an entry or an UI UX enhancement that engages and empowers users, giving them the information they need in the place they need so they can work with the program and really make engagement with the application other than the SharePoint backend, which sometimes is overwhelming to them. You have portal forms where you submit a ticket and view a ticket. Again, these are highly customizable and they would be adapted to your particular needs of the application that you're doing there. Now for the back end, for the technicians, we can have, the people working the tickets, the people who have to answer the requests, they have configurable workspaces where you, based on your role, where you have different graphs and charts. I mean, all this makes SharePoint much more flexible. You can have dashboards with visual displays, counters, those kind of things. And then mobile and responsive design. Now all that, to summarize about UI UX as the first pillar, all these elements I'm showing you are ways to drive user adoption, engage users, both employees and either employees or customers, as well as the staff working the tickets on the back end. So that's one element of the three pillars, one element of our application's ways we've enhanced SharePoint and Office 365. Another one is the workflow and business processes that streamline and automate operations. This is really the heart of the application in many ways, is that now we're taking the input from the user or the employee, whatever, whether it's request, incident, issue, problem, question, automatically generated by a user or customer, whatever, and we have to take it through the process of some kind of workflow, some kind of branching out, some kind of process that's going to bring it to conclusion and resolution. So let's take a look at that. How do we automate? Well, workflows are a way to provide visibility, accountability, full lifecycle tracking, communication. This is very important. I think this is obvious. So let's look at it in a little more detail. Some of the common business workflows. It could be any department. The point here is to show any department, any place in the organization has places that can be automated and streamlined. Now, some departments, and depending on the company, are already pretty well automated. There's probably an IT help desk in place already of some kind. But other places that we find, I mean, in sales might have CRM in place. But there's other places where there's a lot of activity in the organization that's still being done by, say, paper, email, or not automated in any way. And SharePoint and Office 365, using our applications and our methods, we've improved it, give a great way to take those processes that are now not being done efficiently. The emails are getting lost. People don't know the accountability. Maybe it's still on paper, and bring those into this modern approach. And this is what really digital transformation is about, is taking those email, spreadsheet, the old legacy programs, whatever they are, and turning them into much more efficient, much more mobile ready, cloud ready, embedded in the SharePoint and Office 365 environment, and consolidating it into one application based on the Office 365 and SharePoint model there. So let's go here. It could be a simple workflow. This is very, very simple that we enact. This is an onboarding example, but it could be like create request, manage request, do whatever request has to be done, and then you're done. So the thing is, this sounds very simple, but this could be done very simply in SharePoint, with the list, the forms, the workflow automation. Why keep doing it on emails? Why keep doing it on paper? It's very much many benefits to doing it inside of the SharePoint Office 365 environment. It can be a more complex workflows. These take a little more to enact, but we do this all the time, and we're able to translate this kind of workflow process into a SharePoint-based or Office 365-based process here. It's just a matter of what forms to put up, what workflows, what's depending on what. So let's go into a little bit more here, some of the workflow functions that make the application streamline and automate your operations. So there's routing of it, who needs to approve it, alerts and notifications as it goes through, whether you're alerting the person who made the request or people who's being assigned to. Or you can adhere to service level agreements. You can do automatic assignment, automatic escalation if the ticket or request is sit there unattended for some time. You can set up recurring tickets. You can have a number of subtasks and linked items, so one problem might require multiple activities from different people in order to resolve that problem or satisfy that request. Printing out, might print out a work order, give it to somebody who goes out in the field. I don't know, there's all kinds of reasons to print things out, maybe for reporting and management. Email synchronization, meaning that there's interaction with other elements of Office 365 or Outlook programs, database integration. So this can go many ways that make the program or the application a coordinated part of your whole business operation. You're integrating with different departments or different parts of the organization. That's what workflows are about, is to automate and streamline that functionality. So there's different things that trigger a workflow: items created, modified, deleted. It could be a date time, like due date. It could be based on, every July 1st or something, every 1st of the month. It could be a action based on a ribbon, the ribbon in the list item where you push the button. And then that trigger is based on certain conditions, multiple conditions. So let's look at that, getting a little more detailed here. What actions are going to take place? What order? Are they dependent on each other? This is the kind of thing that puts the workflow into action when you build this kind of workflow sequence of events. The items created or the items updated, and we're going to do something like update a database or send out an email notification or run another workflow. These are all things that are done in our workflow manager. So for example, we have high priority ticket, a category network. We're going to notify the director, set due date 4 hours from now, assign to team 1. So trigger, items created, condition, it's a high priority category network, and these actions are going to be taken through the workflow manager. And that's how you start to automate. Is one simple example of how you can automate and streamline the operations. You can start to chain multiple workflows together, and then each one of these little arrows here has its own workflow that then leads into the next arrow, and each one, so it can get very complicated. And then SharePoint and Office 365 are able to handle either simple processes or quite complex ones. This is an insurance management insurance claim processing that goes on, involves SQL databases and just all kinds of things that are there, but it can be done with SharePoint and Office 365 with the right program. So we talked about workflow and business processes. Again, we can go into that in much more detail as we talk about your particular situation, your particular needs. And you can see work we've done before and how our Nitro Studio layer, our applications, our enhancements to SharePoint and Office 365 enable that workflow and processing to take place. So let's look now at reporting. Reporting analytics are very important. We want to answer these key questions. Are we meeting the goals? Is the application performing as it should? How is staff performing? What issues are out there, most common questions and problems that we get? What's blocking performance? Really, bottom line, how can we improve? And there's various ways that enhancements, again, SharePoint Office 365 enhancements that will help answer this. So we had the UI, UX, empower and engage users. We have workflow streamlining and automating operations. And now reporting and analytics to come back in here and say, how are we doing? How can we make this process better? And here's some tools with report centers, dashboards, data integration, Power BI. These things help drive the continuous cycle of improvement that we talk about here. This gives you the information to find the root causes and fix them, whether it's a hardware issue, maybe it needs upgrade, it's outdated, needs a patch, software that is old, procedures that are outdated and or inefficient or can be done better now that you have new tools and new capabilities, and people may need training or more skills in order to, so for example, say they don't know how to use Microsoft Word, so they keep having issues and problems about that, or they don't know how to operate a piece of machinery. So there's some training and other things. But if you don't know what the root causes of the problems are, you can't fix them. So given the reporting and analytics that are a result of the application, you can have good data, good reports, make good decisions on how to improve your operations. So the AIDS application is not just for the immediate resolution of a problem or ticket or issue or whatever. It also is giving you statistics that you can use to look back, analyze, and drive a continuous improvement in your organization. That's not possible as easily, or if at all, with paper or email and spreadsheets and these old legacy programs. Big factor in a move to SharePoint and Office 365 is to get this kind of reporting and analytics out of it. Data comes from the request as it goes through its life cycle. You want to be sure to get the data points. It comes from forms. Users fill out the form. It could be outside sources, system events. Again, we could go, this is really application dependent, what kind of application you have, and then we will, it can be adapted, the reporting can be adapted to get the data you need in whatever manner in order to drive the continuous cycle of improvement and get that kind of either immediate or longer term reporting. So the reporting information comes from the UI, UX, workflows, business process drives the reporting. There's different types of reports needed for whether the immediate staff who wants real-time views of the actual, how many tickets are due, what's overdue today, what needs to be done today, what needs to be escalated, and then the managers may want a more historical view to say how many tickets this month, how many requests this month, what type of request. So there's different time elements. One could be the immediate, and one is the historical for different kinds of staff or managers there. So we have dashboards that give immediate information, visual displays, counter gauges, meters, drill down capabilities. There's list views that have conditional formatting with highlighting, color indicators, KPIs that will show you this immediate dashboard view of the issues and problem. Configurable workspaces. We did show that a little bit UI UX earlier, but the same idea applies to reporting, where there's workspaces that can give you that information, and the reporting can be done also in the mobile and responsive design model. There can be reports that show this is from this modification Office 365, where there's a report center showing different graphical elements and bar charts, columns, pie charts, dashboards. So we looked at the 3 pillars of application design, and we're looking at the underlying components that power this up and make SharePoint Office 365 much more than you get out of the box, and able to enact that digital transformation that we're looking for to make your organization run more efficiently. This could be more profitable if you're a profit-based company, or if you're a government or nonprofit, could be to provide better services to your citizens or members and lower costs. So here's a whole list of ways to do this in the UI UX, forms, portals, workspaces, workflows and business processes, workflow manager, routing, alerts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Reporting here is like this. So let's take a look then at how to power up. And now we're going to move over to showing elements of our applications that help enact and satisfy these needs that we were just talking about here. So what Crow Canyon has done is develop this Nitro Studio. The Nitro Studio gives the ability to enhance and empower SharePoint Office 365 and build these applications. Now there's this Studio, this set of apps. I'll go into this apps right here. These are the apps shown in the Nitro Studio, all the different apps for this particular site called IT Premium. There's a lot of different apps going on here. Well, the idea is that this is, Nitro Studio provides three ways of looking at it. One is an application service layer, meaning that there's a number of enhancements to Office 365 and SharePoint, the forms, the workflows, reporting, all these custom columns, approvals, branding. This is a way to make SharePoint and Office 365 much more powerful and much more capable than you get out of the box. So we could call that an application service layer. We gave it the name of Nitro Studio because we think it really zaps or empowers or enhances SharePoint in ways that really are really effective. And we found this as we go through our we're working with our customers to be really produce results that are very significant for the customer in terms of improving their operations, get them off these legacy programs. In other words, to enact a digital transformation for them and bring them. That's why we say other people talk about digital transformation, workspaces, and that kind of thing. We actually bring it into reality through these kind of developments we're doing, both the Nitro Studio as the application service layer, and then the actual applications that we enact from that, as I shown you earlier, the IT help desk, the asset management, the facility. So I said there's three things for Nitro Studio. Application service layer is one. It's also a development platform for SharePoint and Office 365. So we do have people who want to work with the studio and build applications from it. Another thing is, the third thing is a foundation for our applications. So there's ways to look at this as either this is something that can be used to build applications, simple request management systems using forms and workflows and reporting and portals and all these other elements, and put it together into an application. But if you get our applications out of the box already, this foundation underlies it, and then it gives you an ability to configure that existing application quite easily, taking what we provide and then configuring it to your needs and you like it. Now, we can do that working with you through professional services, or you can do it on your own as you get familiar with the capabilities of this application service layer, the Nitro Studio. So let me go through some of what these apps actually are. So here's forms. The forms will produce there's different ways you can produce these forms. You'd have to go to one of the lists and then start configuring it and looking at the different forms that can come up in that list, and then manipulate the form to show how you want it, different kinds of what's going to show on it, what's a new form, themes, all kinds of things going on here with that. And this is, again, in this webinar, it's not meant to go into deep detail into these things. It's more like I guess you could almost say a teaser or an overview of what's here and what's possible. So I'll go over to the workflows. We can configure different workflows, different either edit or one. The workflow really depends on what you're trying to do in your application. So there's different ways to configure the workflow, depending if it's an IT request system or simple request management, contract management, workflow. For instance, a contract management workflow might be when the expiration comes close, 1 month before the contract expires, inform the responsible person that they need to go deal with that renewal, either yes or no, or make some decision. The workflow could initiate some approval processes. It could be a number of actions that go on. We could create another item, update an item, delete an item, send an email, move, and there could be multiple of these happening in every workflow. So whether it's onboarding with multiple tasks happening at once, when somebody's being onboarding, it has to generate multiple tasks. So we would create items dependent on what kind of onboarding event it is. It might create like 3 or 4 or 5 of these things. It might be once something's approved, let's update an item and change the due date. Escalation could be update the item and send out an email. And there's many ways that workflow manager the workflows can be implemented in the workflow manager to produce the kind of results that you want there. Those, let's see, from here, workflows, forms, workflows, then I'll go to some of the other more basic ones, just cascaded lookup, which sets up the category issue type or state, city type cascading that goes on. Let's go back to the apps. As you can see here, there's a number of these, and in this webinar I don't have time to go into all of them, but just look at the capabilities that we have developed over the years to enhance SharePoint and Office 365. There's so much going on here, and this is what manifests in these applications that we have and makes the digital transformation really possible. So the forms, workflows, reporting, Power Portal, advanced approvals, advanced lookups, where you can look up things across site, branding, cascaded lookups, conditional formatting to show how the lists show, custom actions that you can modify your form to have actions in the ribbon, email manager where you can email back and forth and keep email history and control what, for instance, a request comes in, you might have an automated response you want to send back. And what that is, email synchronization, where you're taking incoming emails and converting them into tickets based on certain rules, enhanced list forms, linked items, list rollups where you're combining multiple lists, printing, how you're going to print out different work orders can be very customizable into what kind of templates you're going to print to, tiles and dials to help enhance the dashboards, user information filler, which determines when a person fills out a ticket where the information comes from and what fields you want to bring in. So a number of capabilities. Each one has a lot to it. Again, it's not something that can show in this webinar other than this overview here. So we can go into one thing though. Let's dive into portals a little bit here. I wanted to show that before we got done with this. Here's an example of a portal. Just to go into this in a little more depth as an example. Here's a portal. Simple, submit a ticket, view tickets, have a knowledge base, maybe a service catalog, different tickets here. Well, to show some of the capabilities of this and ways that SharePoint can be enhanced is we have this portal setting. So you can come in here. I mean, this is to show you the kind of depth that these apps have on them. Configure the portal settings. You can choose what the title is, what the description. You can choose what the logo, the footer section, the menu section, the background image, what forms show up, what pages, the themes. We can have different form pages, what the new form looks like, how that goes. A lot of capabilities going on here. How this home page looks, what the content. So let's go back to there and look at, this is what's underlying how this looks, what the logo is up here, what the saying is here, how these are arranged, how many of these boxes you have, what this form looks like when it comes up. And again, very easy to say you didn't want this picture, you want different colors, you want other fields to show up, you don't want it to be compressed, collapsed accordion, you want it to be expanded. All this can be done through the portal settings here in our program. My point in going into this is to show you that there is enormous flexibility in these apps. So this is why we say digital transformation with Crow Canyon is very possible, because we have, first of all, SharePoint and the underlying capabilities of SharePoint and Office 365. Then with these enhancements that are through UI, UX, workflow, and business process, streamlining those, and reporting analytics, we're able to take that to these levels where we can produce these applications and make it that much more, this digital transformation, this digital workplace, much more real, and get off those old applications that are hindrances to efficiency and productivity at your organization. Now let me go into this a little bit, and then I'll get up we're getting near the 40-minute mark here, so I think I'll just go into this a little bit more. The Nitro Studio is meant, just to be more clear about the explanation here, Nitro Studio underlies our applications. So if we go back to looking at our applications here, let me drag this screen over here. These applications are underlaid by the Nitro Studio. So we have tiles and dials right here. We have forms that come up. This is branding that shows how this looks. We have access to a portal here. We have reporting that comes from the Nitro Studio. So if you want an out-of-the-box application that is configurable, then you might go with something like a facilities management program, link to our equipment management, and then still have the capabilities to go in and manipulate this if you need to with the Nitro Studio backend here with the Nitro apps, and go in and start doing some of the modifications here that make this application perform the way you want. That could be modifying the form, modifying the workflow. If you like it out of the box, that's fine too. And then, so the flexibility, configurability of these applications is really, really enormous due to the fact of not only the base level of SharePoint, but all these Nitro Studio apps we have underlying it can make it really perform the way you want and look the way you want, both in the UI, UX and how it looks, what the users encounter, and the workflows and business processes, and streamline and automation, and the reporting and analytics that drive continuous cycle of improvement. Now back to the Nitro Studio, there's two other options. One is that the Studio itself is available and can be used to build your applications from scratch. You might start with a basic SharePoint site and then be interested in developing forms and workflows yourself that run on it using this we could call it that's why I call it a development platform for Office 365. That's one option. And the other option is to do custom solutions where you come to us and say, hey, we have this workflow process that we need to take off of the old legacy, and we know you have this Nitro Studio, we know you have these applications, but let's take it and make it into, say, that what I shown you earlier, say about that, complex workflow processing, and how using our expertise to build that application. Where are we? PowerPoint here. So let's go back to the PowerPoint we were on. We were on this slide, I think. How to power up. And then we'll, if anybody has any questions, or you can certainly put them into the chat or send us by email. So, okay, I'll go through this, and then we'll get into the screen where we can show you how to contact and get in touch. And again, thank you for taking the time to go to this presentation. But here's the Nitro layer kind of visually. There's SharePoint and Office 365, and this could be SharePoint again, 2013, 2016, on-premises, hybrid, Office 365. We say Office 365, SharePoint is an integral part of it, but more and more our applications are starting to integrate with other elements. There's Outlook, Office, Delve, and Sway, and all these other elements of Office 365. So the SharePoint Online is an important part of it, but Office 365 has a lot of other capabilities. So our applications are built in SharePoint or Office 365. We have these three layers with three pillars we talked about, the UI UX with our forms and portals, workflows and business process, reporting analytics. These comprise the Nitro Studio layer. And from that, we're able to produce our applications or do custom development on it for that. So that's what that diagram is showing. Our Nitro layer for Office 365 is 100% native to Office 365, adherent to all the Microsoft standards for development as they come out with new elements. We were in touch with Microsoft all the time, going to these shows like the European conference, or we're going to a conference next week in Chicago. We go to these and we stay close touch to what Microsoft's doing, what other vendors are doing. So all this is following all the standards of Microsoft for Office 365 development. On premises, we have 2013 and 2016 using web parts and apps built specifically for SharePoint on premises, and again following all the Microsoft standards there. So we have a number of applications. I showed you some of those briefly. Again, we can go into these in much more detail in a one-on-one demo. Help desk, asset management, customer services, facilities, equipment tracking, HR, purchasing, and these can tie together in the sense that there is a help desk can have asset management along with it. Customer service might have equipment tracking, or facilities would have equipment tracking. HR could be onboarding. So we can also go into security access requests, onboarding, compliance workflows. These are all things we've done and we have available out of the box or as custom solutions, a number of custom projects we've done, claims management, check vouchers, quote generators, documentation management of for compliance reasons, dealing with critical essential assets and their need for maintenance and to record it and be audited in terms of how well that asset's been maintained. This applies to electrical generation and electricity generation and those kind of things, where they have to really keep track of their maintenance and updates of their different pieces of equipment, freedom of information with government. I mean, it's a number of things we've done. You can see on our website a number of projects. Here's how to stay in touch with us. I encourage you to follow our blog, which is crocanyon.com/blog, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're doing a lot of activity on Twitter these days. And you send an email to sales@crocanyon.com. Call us up, even from overseas. That number will work. So many ways to stay in touch with Crow Canyon. Hopefully this presentation has been helpful and excites your interest, whether we're working with us to build Office 365 and SharePoint into more capable, or just in general, you see that you can take these platforms that Microsoft gives you and really work them into a way to enact digital transformation in your organization and take it to new levels of productivity and efficiency, and quite easily without really that much cost. I mean, we're talking, there's some cost involved, of course, but not really that much, and the return on investment, the return on the can be quite substantial, and the improvement in user adoption, the streamlining of operations, the driving of continuous cycle of improvement, many benefits to your organization, whether it's higher profits, more productivity, better service to your customers. So I hope this has been useful, and thank you very much for attending. And if any questions, I don't see any questions in the question box, but if you do, you can email us at sales@crocanyon.com. That will come to us and we'll be able to answer that. Thank you for your time and hope to hear from you. Thank you very much.